So here, I am going to discuss inversion. What is inversion, guys? Did I talk about inversion? Sorry, man. I'm gonna check while I'm sitting with you. Why the hell not? And I don't think I talked about inversion before. All right, perfect. So inversion, you guys, is literally how engineers. I just read about inversion, by the way, 3 weeks ago. I don't know what I was like doing, but like it came up as I was like researching some articles and I was going through like some online things. It's funny because like sometimes you kind of like feel you don't know what to do, and then you get on YouTube or on Google, on Instagram. Like all of them are legit resources, except for TikTok, man. I really think TikTok is not really the best. You might get some good stuff from TikTok, but you have to get out. You have to dive away from the bullshit. It's just a lot. But anyway, so inversion, and I realized it because when I was reading about it, I was like very much interested in it, and then I kind of like realized that a year and a half ago I applied it without really understanding what I was doing. But it's fun. So a year and a half ago, a couple of years back, when I got my idea and I started kind of like seeking out people to work with, I started going up and down. I started researching things. I started like asking people and figuring out how people do this kind of shit. How do people do this kind of shit? And I had no idea. So ultimately, what I did was I started. Uh, every single time I think of a way for me to start, I kind of like I think about my idea and I go like, oh, okay, so like this is my idea, and so we need to build it. We need developers, and I go and I start talking to developers, for example, and then I'm talking to developers about what I want to build, and I notice their face is kind of like, what the hell are you talking about? And for me, in my head, it makes sense. The idea makes sense. Like, why are they not understanding me? So then I go like, maybe it's not time for developers. So I go talk to business people, and then the business people look at me and go like, like we admire your passion, maybe, or maybe you kind of like make some sense, but in reality, we don't really know what you're trying to do. And then the more that happened, the more I kind of started feeling like whatever it is I was looking at was only seen by me, was only solidified, or not even solidified in my head. It was like some form of like arbitrary image of something succeeding in my head. So, anyways, when I came to Lebanon, I was like, okay, so if I were to do something, if I were to actually, and when I came to Lebanon, I was like very much at a low point because I came with the whole like frustrations of I don't know what to do. And I came with a whole lot of like anxiety with like, I'm like a 36-year-old guy. After 10 years, technically I failed. And so if I were to do something right now, I can't just half-ass anything. I can't. I can't. It's not because I'm rushing. It's because like if I don't, after 36 fucking years, understand that whatever I do right now needs to actually lead somewhere. Because I realized that whatever it is I was doing in Liberia wasn't actually leading anywhere. And it's not the country's fault, it's not the people's fault, it's mine. I'm the guy who's kind of like not really be able to be consistent and move and like all that kind of stuff. So, anyways, I sat with myself, and at one point, maybe I could actually have this conversation sometime. But at one point, I started reading a lot of philosophy, and that was an intense 6 months in my life. But I wouldn't call it like a depressive state, but I would definitely call it an intense state where I was like completely like intensely like viewing all aspects of life from a philosophical standpoint and a psychological standpoint. Because there are a lot of the people, the philosophers of the world, kind of like rhyme when it comes to the certain things, but everyone explains it in their own way. And I think like the culture attributes to it, the time, like early 90s, late 1800s, early 1700s, all these kind of like are contributors to how things are explained. And it's funny because like every generation needs to understand a certain kind of way and understands a certain vibe. Words, even though they're same words, they're expressed differently. Just human nature is fascinating, man. Like our consciousness and our evolution is just like a fascinating thing. How we adapt, how we evolve, how we transition is fascinating. How we manifest, how we conceptualize, I love that word, is fucking amazing. But anyway, uh, so I sat with myself and I was like, all right, man, you kind of like are not really the best version of yourself right now. You've learned a lot. You need to articulate all the stuff you learned. But before you articulate all the stuff you learned, let's do something better. Because I was sitting there and going like, am I going to do something I already do or not? Because naturally, like the first thing I thought of when I came to Lebanon was, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna do. And then I looked at myself and I was like, isn't that what I always do? Taking a step back, or not really taking a step back, just stopping, allowing everything to move. I wanted to observe the movement of everything around me in order to understand what the hell is going on. And I wanted to understand, and that's a Miyamoto Musashi kind of like quote, like positioning yourself. It's not about how you fight. It's basically when you choose to fight, the position you take when it comes to the fight. It's about like the what you trigger in the fight, what you trigger in the fighter and the opponent, all these kinds of things. You're like this. He has a beautiful book, and based on his principles, and like his books are beautiful because they're like talking about normal stuff, and then suddenly, bam, like one line kind of like blows your mind, and you're like, what the fuck is this happening? But so for him, like one of the quotes that kind of like very much like struck with me is. Today you're a better man. Today you're victorious about yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow you're victorious over lesser men. And I didn't mean lesser. He didn't mean lesser men in any way other than men that aren't being actualizing the way you are, aren't considering the world the way you are. And so that kind of like basically pushed me into a standstill, Tari. If you're going to go and like pick a fight right now, you'll probably lose. And you can't afford to kind of lose on small scale anymore. You have to lose in a way that you're actually learning something decent. You can't lose just because you're not ready, you're not prepared, you're not settled, you're like, I can't like be going somewhere and then lose by falling off the road because I chose the wrong road. I need to kind of lose like honorably. Yeah, fun stuff. But anyway, so I sat with myself, I think, for like 2, 3 months while I started studying more about computer science, while I started finding programs and doing all this stuff. I just started thinking and writing and thinking and writing and walking around and asking questions and like trying my best to. I still had the same idea that I came back from like Liberia, and I wanted to kind of like implement a software that connects the businesses together. But the problem is, it's not that the software doesn't exist. I actually Googled it, I checked it once or twice. The software exists. Lots of software exists. The problem is that engagement that the people have with such software is very hard because you kind of have to convince people to use it. And so that's probably why. That's definitely why. Probably. That's definitely why. Why my choice is also to kind of like have a YouTube channel, also like learn marketing, learn e-commerce, and like be able to use the web online to kind of like sell my idea in order for the people that might use it to actually have like different angles approach to them. And it's all me because eventually I'm going to want to work with people and I want to now work with people. But the reality is like these people will understand as much as I'm able to explain to them. And so, based on that train of thought, I started basically formulating the end result of my idea. And it became clearer and clearer and clearer of what exactly I wanted to do. And gamifying society is the end result. But like before a gamifying society, there's a whole kind of like, never mind. But you kind of have to create a point system and you have to work with money and like a financial like project. So that you need something financially that supports, and I want to use blockchain to support the network because I believe that like every individual can be their own node, but they have to kind of like be authentic in a way. And I'll dive into the details of that later on. Don't worry about it. So, anyways, as we move on, and once I actually established how the idea would actually be for me to actually want to spend my life working on it. Once I had established that, then I was like, okay, what would it take for this to exist? And then from there, I took a step back and then I noticed what I wanted. And then I took a step back and I noticed what I wanted. I took a step back and I noticed what I wanted. And every time I take a step back, it's not like I take a step back in 5 minutes and then I think about something else. Yeah, sure. I woke up the next day and I was like, this is what I wanted to do. And I started doing it. And here you go. I'm a web developer. It was like, no, it was a consistent process of doubting every single thing. I like literally triggered my own anxiety at any chance I could to actually prove that this would fail. And every single time I actually see it failing, for some fucking reason, my mind figures out a different way for it to actually succeed. And by doing that, it's not reverse engineered, more like I approached my idea inversely than I normally would. Like I did not basically plan the route towards the end of the tip of the mountain by like walking every single road and like testing them out. What I did was I looked at the actual idea and I step by step basically decided on the short-term goals that that needed to be reached in order for that to be a legitimate goal for me. And I did that in a way where I actually made understood more, and every single, like again, like it's an ongoing process. It's not something like the outline alone, the 5 stages of my platform alone literally took me 3 months to fix. And it's one piece of paper, it's 2 pieces of paper, it's a document. So 2 pieces of paper on a document, literally just explaining as brief as possible what stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. And they were done in reverse. So that's the inverse technique. I spent like 3 months to 6 months doing that until I actually finished, like finalized the boot camp. And when I finalized the boot camp, I realized that I had nothing to do right now but to start working on that idea. And even then, the idea was getting better and different and changing as I'm trying to build. It's like a lot of confusing shit because the more stuff you know, the more you realize you have to adjust the route you're taking. It's beautiful, it's fun. At times, I wish there's somebody with me that's doing it. At other times, I'm glad there isn't. So, yeah, inversion, literally taking whatever it is you want to see done and reverse engineering it or reversing the process of moving towards it by literally making sure every single thing that could fail won't. And then anytime you find yourself succeeding, you literally say, what if I fail? And then you go like, if I fail, it's because of this, then I can go this to make it succeed. And it just keeps refreshing on itself. It's a beautiful like recursive loop, recursion. Google that. Thank you guys.